Welcome into Queen City News Plus. We got order in the court today. I'm Brian Blakely.
And I'm Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes.
Khalif, you know the deal. We got three great topics we're going to be talking about today. Well, one of them on the back end is going to be the NASCAR suing Front Row Motorsports, the big legal action along with Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and that's got some fireworks already going today. We're going to talk about the legal implications with that. Also, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump doubling down on his anti-immigration policies, pausing the administration's the asylum applications. So that'll be your second topic. But first, let's start with the Venezuelan airstrikes. And now, because there's a lot more that seems to be coming out about what happened on September 2nd, an attack on one of the suspected drug dealers' boats that's coming out of there, where there could have been a second order to kill, and that would violate some international law. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Ryan, this one is a talker, as we say in the business. There are a number of folks that are concerned. This is something that has received bipartisan support. So let's start there. Both Republicans and Democrats are concerned with this. They want to know the who, what, when, where, and why. Who ordered the second strike? Was there a second strike? If so, why was it ordered? And this anonymous person that has stated that this has happened is saying that it was under the direction of Pete Hegseth. And the commander of this operation said because Hegseth gave the order, that's what needs to occur. You kind of touched on a little bit of what my concern and issue is well, if these folks had already had a strike and there were survivors, those survivors would, under any condition, not be able to be, executed like that. I mean, it's kind of like you're attempting to be judge, jury, and executioner in these situations and putting it under the guise of, attempting to stop these narco traffickers, as he said. But the problem with that is that there are wars, there are rules against, extrajudicial killings. And then there are rules against killing folks that are attempting to surrender. So in any type of conflict, if this is a law enforcement operation or if this is an armed conflict, any scenario leads to the killing of a person that is not a threat. If it's police action, that's a problem. And if it's military, if it's an armed conflict, then a person surrendering at war is given an opportunity to surrender without being executed. So I think, and rightfully so, Congress has questions, and this is a thing that I can be happy that our government is finally working together, that are setting aside R's and D's, and they're saying, look, I need answers.
Well, and you're looking at some of the video here of some of these airstrikes that have been happening on suspected drug dealers coming out on a boat out of Venezuela and somehow making it at some point to the United States. And that is what the administration has been doing with this escalated ramp up to what could be seeing ground forces going in by the Trump administration. They were talking about that could possibly happen this week. But the issue here is what you're talking about. That's second strike.
Yeah.
So the first strike just annihilated the boat, but there were two survivors.
Let's be clear. Even if the first strike annihilated the survivors, annihilated the boat, that in itself is problematic because folks have already argued that these strikes just
shouldn't happen in the first place.
Shouldn't happen at all. And so let's not just jump to the second shooting or firing being a problem. I'm still standing on the position that the first one is a problem. I mean, and you got to look at it from a number of reasons. If we're saying that these are people that are bringing drugs to this country and they're hurting and killing American citizens, Brian, what's the charge for, distribution of narcotics?
There's been no evidence of anything about who they did hit.
Right. But even if they had evidence, right, even if they took this individual or group of individuals to trial with due process, which we have in our country, what would be the maximum punishment for drug trafficking in our country? Well, if it was North Carolina and you say you have the highest level, you're a level 3 drug trafficker of the worst type of drugs, cocaine or some type of opium. Well, you're depending on how many, you're talking about 29 years for each different amount. So yeah, 400 or 500 years you can get if you got a boatload, but still not life, still not the death penalty. And so the fact that you're attempting to execute people for this is problematic because it's inconsistent with our own laws. If this was, again, not a military operation, but if this is a straight police operation, let's say, for instance, this wasn't in the middle of the land, but it was, say, in the middle of the sea, but say it was in Mecklenburg County, and someone said, you know what, officers, we're just going to go ahead and blow up this van because we know they're trafficking drugs. There would be outrage, but because that's not how the law works. Well, just because they're in the middle of the water doesn't mean that we don't have to follow American law or international law, depending on where these things are happening. And so there are international laws that restrict this type of action, and there are war crimes.
But who's going to police those international laws? Well, who's going to enforce those international laws? Because we've seen a lot of international laws being scoffed at, and people breaking, doing a lot of war crimes, so to speak, is what they're talking about in this vein with that quote war crimes, and nothing's been done.
Well, you got the laws
talking about Putin in Ukraine,
right? You got the laws of armed conflict. You got the Article 3 of the Geneva Convention. You got U.S. military rules of engagement. So it really just depends on what capacity these allegations are being brought. I mean, but we remember the trials with Nazi Germany. When all those things happened years later, after those folks fled to different countries, they were finally brought up on charges. And these war crimes that they had to stand for, they went in front of some type of tribunal. It may not have been a tribunal in America, but it was in front of some type of war trial committee, some type of war trial tribunal. And I suspect years later, if it is known that Pete Hegseth gave an order to kill and to shoot, and they're saying to kill everyone on board, if there were survivors, as the reports are saying, those survivors should not have been executed under any scenario after they survived the initial attack.
And that is the thing. One of the things about the United States right now is there is supposed to be congressional oversight over things like this. That hasn't happened so far, but now it looks like there's a groundswell of support to do that. Republicans and Democrats have gotten together, and they both in the House and Senate, and say they will be conducting rigorous oversight to determine exactly what happened during just this one specific second attack.
While they're creating this rigorous oversight, Hegseth is doubling down, making and mocking media. Posted something the other day saying, look, Merry Christmas for your Christmas wish list. These are the types of things that this administration has, allowed to occur. But then President Trump even goes out and says, hey, I got great confidence in him. But then Trump also says, he wouldn't have ordered a second strike. The first strike was lethal, and it was fine. Basically saying, I don't know exactly what happened, but I'll find out. So those are the things that are concerning, because part of what I'm assuming that President Trump would have been briefed on is that the same thing that I'm saying. Under no condition could a prisoner surrender, a person that has been injured in the middle of a war, or a person attempting to release themselves to be arrested. Neither one of those scenarios allow you to execute them on the spot.
All right, we're going to have to leave that one there and continue to follow that one for sure. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about our second case here on Order in the Court with Khalif and Brian, and that is going to be about Donald Trump there saying his administration is putting a pause on asylum applications, no more immigration for individuals wanting to come to the United States. And it comes after the two National Guard soldiers were shot. One of them died. We'll be right back. You're watching Queen City News Plus and Order in the Court. Welcome back to Order in the Court with Khalif and Brian here, talking about our second subject today. And that is going to be talking about President Trump is putting a pause on asylum seekers coming into the United States. And it comes after the November 26th shooting of two National Guard soldiers. One of them died in Washington, D.C. And what that person who allegedly committed that crime was an asylum seeker who came here, had worked from Afghanistan, worked for the CIA, came here under the Biden administration in 2021, and then also was granted asylum by the Trump administration last spring and April. So now that poses a lot of questions going forward. President Trump said, double down, says there's going to be no timeline, as could be a long time as far as this pause on asylum seekers.
Yeah, President Trump has had a number of things to say about immigration, obviously making the comment about being the largest deportation in American history. He's also had comments to say about this asylum seeking, which is a part of the immigration process. He's called for a permanent pause on migrants from third world countries, that's his words, and added only reverse migration can cure this situation. This rhetoric is similar to what President Trump said in his first administration, when we had travel bans, third world country deportation deals, and aggressive refugees limitations. But this is a little bit different. And the reason why I say it's different is because what we're talking about are asylum seekers, and he's not just attempting to pause folks coming in, but he's also attempting to rewind people that have already come in. He's asking for a thorough review and ensure that every person, every alien that came into this country is vetted and screened to the maximum degree possible.
Which, by this case, this person was vetted extensively by the United States to come in here. He had worked for the CIA in Afghanistan, doing targeted kills of Afghan army officials for the CIA, a very deep, top secret type of stuff.
So this is the type of person that America would have trained to go out there and assist us. And then it's back to America fulfilling and being a country that honors its promises. During the Afghanistan war, we had individuals in that country that allowed us to be successful, that we promised that because you helped us, because you turned on the Taliban and anybody else in that time, that we would allow you to come back to the United States, because if we left you there, you'd die. And so that's what happened. A number of these folks came here and received and sought asylum and were given asylum because they were vetted through a process of cooperation. That it's kind of with any contract or negotiation, if you have a benefit for the bargain, i.e. I'm going to give you something because you're giving me something, then it's more likely that you'll get people to participate. And so part of that process was, yes, individuals that helped this country, help save American lives, would then be given an opportunity to come to America and start their life. Unfortunately, this situation, which is the worst scenario that you can ever think of, has occurred. But it's attempting to throw out the baby with the bathwater. My heart goes out to both of the individuals that were shot. The individual who lost their life, this was not something that's anticipated, calculated, or could have been, thought of happening with this scenario. But now to say that, hey, everyone that came here under the Biden administration shouldn't have been here, well, I think that's walking back a promise that we've made as a country to individuals. And you can't say that, hey, now all these folks, as Christy Nolan has said, this guy came here and was then radicalized as he got here from his home country. Well, that could happen to anyone. So attempting to now bundle all of these folks together, even the people that were here and vetted multiple years ago, now just causes more creation for mass hysteria and fear through the immigration process.
What recourse here to what recourse here to the immigrants that are already here in the United States? What do they have if they're being told that they may have to leave?
The recourse would be limited, and that's why I talk about the promises of a country being a country that honors
already been granted asylum.
Right. If you've been granted asylum, let's think about it like this. You're not coming to this country because you're seeking a better opportunity. You're not coming to this country when you're an asylum seeker because you're saying, back home I made $10 an hour and I can make $20 or $40 an hour in America. No, when you're an asylum seeker, you are running from someone that is attempting to kill you. That's what asylum is, that you're going to be persecuted, not just prosecuted, but killed if you stay in your original country. So that's what these people are running from. So now to say, yes, we're going to send you back, and we don't have any clear definition of what the vetting process looks like. Well, there are obligations, statutory obligations to these people that seek asylum. They have constitutional rights to due process. So you ask the question of what recourse do they have? They have a right to a hearing. You have a right to be able to say, government, country, provide to me the information that you believe shows that I am a danger, that I would have failed this newly heightened vetting process. And because of that, now I should not be granted asylum in this country that had previously given me asylum. That's the folks in the past. For the people coming in, it would be kind of the same, except for the due process portion. While they are required and given an opportunity to be heard, that it's not as much as it would be for a person that has already received asylum and is already here in this country.
All right. That is certainly a very heavy topic that we are going to keep following here on Queen City News Plus as We're going to have another topic we want to get to because we're going to spend some time on this one, and that's coming up, the NASCAR trial here today on the antitrust involving two motorsports teams, including Michael Jordan. That started in Charlotte, and already fireworks happening on that. Queen City News Plus Live. You're watching Khalif and Brian. We'll be right back in Order in the Court. Welcome back to Order in the Court here with Khalif and Brian, and we're talking about our last topic of today. Khalif, big things happening here in Uptown Charlotte, and that is the NASCAR antitrust trial involving two motorsports teams involving the charter system. That is Michael Jordan in 2311, along with Denny Hamlin, and Front Row Motorsports today. And that trial got underway. They couldn't even come to any kind of a settlement in their arbitration, whatever. They went to trial today, and it's already fireworks, from what I understand.
Fireworks. And Brian, you said in Uptown Charlotte, where else could it be? Think about it. We got NASCAR Hall of Fame, got Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is the best place for a case about NASCAR to take place. Michael Jordan, former owner of the Hornets, right up the street. I mean, where else could it be? Right here in our backyard. I'm excited. You got to talk about a couple of things. First of all, we had today opening statements, not opening arguments, as some folks that don't have a lot of practice in the court would say. We have closing arguments. We have opening statements. What am I doing in opening statements? I'm laying the foundation. I'm telling you what I suspect or think that the facts or the evidence will show. What I'm not doing is attempting to enter evidence. What I'm not doing is, saying, hey, here's the smoking gun and holding it up in court. Why? Because that would be an inadmissible or improper use of opening statement. And so most of the time if that happens, the other side will object. The judge will sustain that objection, and then you'd have a problem because what you want to have is a fluid opening. What you don't want to have is what we had today, which is a lot of back and forth, a lot of frustrations, and a lot of people attempting to enter and make statements that they can't make in the normal process under the
judges already jumped in, admonishing and scolding both sides, say you guys can't follow the rules, and he's already upset.
Well, you got to remember, there's only one person in there. There's only one alpha dog in that courtroom. Now, Michael Jordan has been an alpha dog every place that he's been in, but in the courtroom in U.S. District Court, there is a United States District Court judge sitting on the bench, and that is the person that has an obligation to control the clock, to manage the time, to call balls and strikes, to do whatever you want to say to ensure that, guess what? I'm in charge. You can pretend that you're in charge, but the person wearing the robe is the one in charge. And what does this case boil down to, right? We're talking about NASCAR, and we're talking about monopoly, and we're talking about antitrust. Well, a judge has already ruled, this same judge has ruled that NASCAR is a monopoly. It's not just enough to be a monopoly. You also have to be a monopoly that is using that monopoly to some unfair gain, to your unfair advantage as the person that's holding all the chips, that because I have this monopoly, I'm controlling everything and not allowing fair competition. That's harm to competition, not just to the teams, but to competition in general is going to be the crux of this case. NASCAR is going to come out on the other side and say, hey, we're not being anti-competitive. If you don't want to use our charter system, guess what? We've got this open team process that you can go through. On the other side, Michael Jordan and his team and Hamlin will say, well, thanks for allowing us to play with this open charter process. But without a charter, we don't get revenue sharing. We're not getting access to guaranteed open slots. And that is the problem. And so you've got folks that have conflicting arguments. And as you mentioned, you can't find a settlement at trial. Why? Because we are 2 miles apart from negotiations, and that's how we get to trial.
Very, very contentious on this. And you're looking at Michael Jordan right there. He was in court today, as you were just talking about. He got the exemption to be in court today. What kind of issues does this pose for a potential jury? Does it taint him a little bit? Because one of the jurors that was, when they were trying to seat the jury today, one of them was not going to be impartial because everybody knows Michael Jordan. So, and he says his quote was, "I like Mike." And then he had another guy had posters of Michael Jordan growing up. So it certainly poses some issues.
Most of the time when you have a jury selection, the overwhelming amount of people that are in the pool don't want to be on the jury. This case is obviously an exception. Think about it. You got all the Hall of Famers. You got Hendricks. You got Childress, you got Penske. You got a lot of folks that are in this. Even in the emails that you're reading about Tony Stewart, some more Richard Childress stuff. There's a lot of mudslinging that was happening.
The witness list on this is incredible.
Oh, it is. I mean, and so get your popcorn ready. If you are looking for some action in Charlotte, you may want to go to U.S. District Court right up the street and right in the heart of downtown Charlotte and try to get a seat in the courtroom. But no, I think that asking about what Michael Jordan and his role would be, just his presence, yeah, that a person, a potential juror could say, you know what, I'm a fan of Michael Jordan. But this is all part of the process. Remember, a juror can say that, and then the person that's attempting to get them removed doesn't want to use one of their strikes. They want to get them removed for cause. And so my magic words after you say, Brian, if you told me, hey, I'm a big fan of Michael Jordan, the very next thing I'm saying, will that substantially impair your ability to be fair and impartial? And if you say, yes, it will, Your Honor, I'm asking that he be removed for strike instantly. That's what I'm asking for. Now, the judge will come behind and try to clean you up. They'll try to rehabilitate you. They'll say, well, Brian, I know that you're saying that it will substantially impair you, but if I tell you, if I direct you that you got to set that aside, can you? Kind of strong-arm you, kind of bullying you.
Sure is, yeah.
Right. And the judges will do that a lot. And so then, most of the time, people are going to say, yes, Your Honor.
Is that fair and impartial, though?
It isn't. So guess what I will do? I'd come back and ask him again. Now, I know the judges asked you to set that aside. But if you really had to set it aside, could you be fair and impartial? Would it substantially impair? That whole back and forth, if you can get them to fold, especially if it's somebody I don't want, then instantly I'm asking for them to get calls again. The judge will try to rehabilitate. So that dance happens a lot. If a person can't be fair and impartial, that's a problem. But just having a bias isn't enough to be removed from a jury. You have to have that bias so much so that it will substantially impair your ability to be fair and impartial, and you can't set it aside. That's rare.
So let's talk about the stakes in this case that are happening. It's extremely high for NASCAR, the top motorsports league here, as far as the stock cars. This could really alter the outcome of the whole business model for NASCAR going forward, depending on what happens here in court.
I got a lot of things. So charters right now, they're revocable and they're not permanent. So could be permanent if Michael Jordan wins. Reorganization of governance. Right now, these charter folks want to have a seat at the table, like NBA franchisees or NFL franchisees, where they have an opportunity to dictate the rules of the sport. That doesn't happen right now. So reorganization of governance could happen. Then we have sell assets because NASCAR may have been held to have been not just a monopoly, but unfair, competitive, and antitrust. The judge may say, we'll go back a number of years and have to sell some of the assets that you've acquired based on that unfair competition. And then the last thing is damages. Because they're asking for something called treble damages, if the judge or the jury decides that, yes, they are an unfair, deceptive trade practices, and they are operating in some antitrust capacity after the jury convicts, or I should say finds them guilty, the judge can then award treble damages for whatever award the jury comes back with. And so there are a number of opportunities for NASCAR to be harmed in this. But on the other side, if NASCAR is successful, front row in 2311 may not survive beyond 2026. Their non-6 charter teams, they may likely fold. NASCAR would float charters to other buyers. They've already said we got buyers out there that want these charters. So this has a long-term effect, but all the other sports are watching. NFL's watching, NBA's watching, NHL's watching. They're all trying to figure out how this
how's going to impact them.
Will impact them with contracts, with these huge contracts they get from TV deals, because all the stuff that came out of Discovery shows that, hey, you guys are profitable, now share the profit.
Yeah. All right. That is just where we're going to leave it right now for that, because this is some great stuff going on, especially the heart of NASCAR right here in Charlotte, in Uptown going on. And you got NBA superstar Michael Jordan involved, Denny Hamlin, Front Row Motorsports, and, of course, NASCAR with everybody, all the executives that really call this place their home. And we're going to have to see exactly where this goes going forward. Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. Court is not in session anymore, buddy. We had a good time today. That was fun. All right. Appreciate you, buddy. Always good to see you. And we're going to wrap it up here as you're watching Queen City News Plus.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.